So, hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Outmarket.pro podcast. I'm your host, Mark Stein. If you're considering your future living options as a senior or know a senior who's looking to find the right community fit for them, this episode is for you. And I'm excited to be here today with John Killeen. Is that how you pronounce it, John, your last name?
Killeen, correct. Yeah, like Killeen, Texas. If people
Okay.
are in the military in Fort Hood, they would know that how to say it. So,
Were you named after where you were born?
no, no, no.
Okay. And he's the owner of a franchise location of Oasis Senior Advisors. Oasis Senior Advisors strives to simplify the search for senior care by offering knowledgeable resources, compassionate guidance, and customized services to all seniors and their families. So, welcome to the Outmarket.pro podcast, John.
I appreciate it. Glad to be here. Very excited to talk about senior placement.
Excellent. So let's start with your background and what sparked your interest in, because I know that you've recently started your practice. Uh, Talk a little bit about where you're coming from and what led you here.
Sure. Well, I've since graduated from college way back when, I've worked with seniors and healthcare. Um, for most of my career, I was in the food service business, running food service in senior communities for numerous years. And then I'm going to say this past year, I really wanted to decide whether I wanted to continue in the food service world, but I wanted to find something that I know that I could help seniors and work with seniors pretty much for the rest of my career. So I did a little bit, of course, investigation and research, and I decided to pursue Oasis Senior Advisors, which helps seniors get placed. So I'm really excited and starting this business and being helping seniors across the whole Pinellas County area.
Great. And is that, give us the boundaries of your territory? It might be from
Sure.
Cook County.
Yeah. I guess technically it would be the southern Pinellas. So I have Pinellas Park, Seminole, most of Largo, a little bit of Clearwater, all of St. Pete, and the beaches.
Okay, and I'm up in the northern part of the county. Is there a partner that you would have and work with if
Yeah,
somebody's
absolutely.
living in the northern part?
Yep. I'm actually there's another franchise just north of me in northern Pinellas. We also have someone in Tampa Bay and in Sarasota. And since we're talking about that, people say, well, can I call you for other parts of the area or even another state? And that's absolutely the case. We can help anyone across the country. So if someone got displaced during the hurricanes, for instance, and wanted to go to New Jersey, we could help with someone relocating back to New Jersey, which is great about our company. A lot of people are just local and only can do locals, but we can help anyone across the nation.
And how do you know how many franchisees there are roughly in
Yeah,
the country?
I believe that there's about 120 franchisees across the country.
So that's pretty good coverage, probably.
It is, it is. And just to let you know, even if there wasn't a franchise in a specific city or zip code, once again, we can help with that as we have connections, around, more than likely there's someone around that area that can definitely help. So.
And what would the handoff look like? Would you do an initial brief survey of what their needs are, enough to know in order to pass it to a colleague? Is that how that would work?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we would do the initial assessment with their health needs, the financial aspect, likes, dislikes, activities, those types of things, and then hand it off to the appropriate franchisee or territory.
Okay. And what are the different, I know there are different levels of care. Um, and maybe it goes this way and not this way, but talk to us first about the different levels of care that your company offers and focuses
Sure.
on.
So we can help amongst all the different areas. We have independent living, assisted living, memory care, and we can also help with skilled nursing and even rehab if needed. So basically, the whole development, a lot of people move into independent living and then need assisted or memory care and then potentially skilled if the health conditions do worsen. So we can help all areas of the senior community areas.
And we had an earlier conversation, um, full disclosure, John and I are in a similar networking consortium. So we met through a one-on-one meeting. And I believe that you shared with me that, especially given the early stages of your practice, that you're happy to help people with anything that they need, uh, in-home care, uh, whatever, to point them in the direction of whatever assistance they need.
Absolutely. We have lots of connections. Our theory is we want to be a one-stop shop. So we can help with home care. We can help with their VA or aid in attendance benefits, their long-term care insurance. We can help with a bridge loan if needed, if finances are needed on their current home. Of course, we have real estate agents if they want to sell their home. We can help pretty much with any aspect, even pet care. We've helped people with pet care if needed. So
And we're definitely, most people, especially when they reach senior years, are definitely attached to their animals as a family member for sure.
absolutely, absolutely.
Well, that's really helpful. And, we focus on business as well as good services for people. And that's good business. You're helping people with what they need at this point, and then they're more likely to remember you as very helpful. And when the time comes, if we're lucky enough to live that long, then they're going to need eventually fall into your service area, your main service area. But
Absolutely.
still commendable, because a lot of people will not want to devote their time to anything that's not revenue producing immediately. So,
And just to go along with the previous question, we'll also help with Medicaid. So if someone is on Medicaid and needs to move into an assisted living or memory care or skill, we'll definitely help with those seniors and families as well.
okay. Um, Talk to me about some experiences thus far. I would imagine this is a very rewarding work. So it is very rewarding work. So talk to me a little bit about some of those esoteric rewards, in addition.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, um, it's not for most, it's not an easy transition. So many times we're working with the family and the senior. So, the positive with us is we're not going to push the most expensive or maybe something that just because I've referred to that assisted living many times, it's all about the senior and what they like, the financial aspect. Um, and we want to make sure it's a good fit because we don't want to move someone in and say, 30 days, 60 days, it's not good. We want to make sure all aspects of what they're looking for are there to make it a wonderful fit, as well as the location. That is a lot of times, especially when you're dealing with families, we want to make sure that it may be near their um, son, daughter, friend, neighbor, so that they can be visited often. And so that can be a big part of that decision. Another thing that is rewarding, what I do, that I'm not saying that all franchisees do, but I definitely do. I want to make sure when they do move in, I'm going to be there. So I help. I can give you an example recently where it was just the daughter and the mother. They had no other help, and I went to the community and I helped. They unfortunately the mother lost everything in one of the hurricanes, and had to start from scratch. So they got numerous Amazon deliveries with furniture that had to be assembled, and I was able to assemble those. I helped the dresser, the bed, lamps. I spent time that most of that day with them getting that all assembled, so they were able to sleep that night, basically. So yeah, that to me it is so rewarding. It's more than, oh, let's get a place and move you in. I want to make sure that it's ready to go, and when they're done with that move in, it's ready for them to sleep in that night. So that's it. It's exciting because it is a new home. It's more than it's not a temporary thing for most. They're permanent. This is going to be their home potentially for the rest of their lives. So that's important.
I'm fortunate in that both of the homes that I have purchased, I walked in and I got goosebumps immediately. And I just, within a minute or less, I knew this was my place. Have you experienced that? And some people don't experience it. This checks the boxes, and it's rationally, it makes sense, but they don't have this clear, I'll dare to say, karmic sense that this is where I belong. But when they do, it's powerful for them, and I would imagine for somebody who's showing them around. Have you experienced that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. A lot of times, I'm nothing against any community, but sometimes when you go into a community, just the residents themselves are the ones that are going to help decide that. If they have residents out and about and they're talking to the potential senior that may be moving in, that is it's a great help because they're making a connection right off the bat without even moving in. Sometimes that doesn't happen, and that could deter, as well as the person that is doing the tour. As I mentioned, I go on the tours with them, but the salesperson at the community, if they're really interactive and asking them about their personal life and asking them, more about the community and the activities, because we want to make sure that they're excited. And so all that offering when they're going through the tour and seeing the activities and seeing the interaction with the actual seniors that live there is going to really basically make that decision whether or not they're going to enjoy it there.
Mhm. And I would imagine that the time of day really means something because if it's nap time and nobody's in the common rooms and nobody's eating, um, it might make the place feel, pardon the pun, dead and lifeless. So,
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And it's interesting to say that because sometimes, between let's say 2 and 4, between lunch and dinner, that can be. But then, what I've seen with many people doing the tour, we'll take it to an activity that may be happening because that's, between lunch and dinner, that's where a lot of activities do occur. So they'll take them that, or maybe even bring them into a room, kind of like a spokesperson, a senior spokesperson that lives there. Hey, let me introduce you to Mary, and Mary can tell you all about our community. So that way, it's more than just a salesperson; it's also a resident that lives there.
my mom was in a facility nursing. I don't remember which level, but not memory care, for several years. And she's one of these bubbly personalities. And she was that ambassador, I think is what they called it. And she was a salesperson at heart. So she got really close to becoming a commissioned salesperson for the facility. Um, but she was so gregarious um, and made it feel fun for people. So
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I mean, that is the right word, is ambassadors. Many communities do have, and not all, but many should, because that's how you're going to convince the senior specifically, or even the family member, that this is a great fit.
what type of tour do you take of the facilities in the area? I would imagine that that's a regular part of your work. And what
I
do you look for um, when you go in to preview?
Sure, absolutely. So yeah, I've taken tours. My first you know, 4 or 5 months of business here of all the communities. Um, and when I do go in, you know, you want to see what activities that they do offer. You want to see cleanliness. You want to see um, uh, how the seniors are interacting with one another. You want to see dining times because food is an important aspect of their daily routine. My opinion, being in the food service business prior, it is the most important because you're going to go, hopefully go down for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and that's where most of your interaction is going to occur. So tasting the food as well, you know, because that's what, you know, you're not going to be cooking for the most part on a daily basis. You're going to be eating their food. So going in and tasting the food, another important aspect. You know, location. Any other, you know, some do have pools. Some may have a small gym. Some may have an in-house doctor. Some may have church service. Some may have bocce or bingo. You know, those activities that some seniors really look for. Making sure you understand that, and that's a positive with our company as well. With Oasis, is that our database. So after I do tour, I have all that information in my database, and we have a software program called Oasis IQ that gathers all that information. It's in there. So if I ever have a question, I can't remember every single community, as I do have 70 plus communities in my region. I can go in my notes and take a look at that to make sure, hey, she wants to play bingo, or oh, do they offer Catholic Mass every Sunday, or can they go to Catholic Mass every Sunday? Those type of things may be the decision maker on whether or not they even will tour, because they are so important to the family or the senior.
Here's a tricky question for you, or a tricky issue. Um, every person who's hired to be the director of these facilities has to have a personality that's consistent. Um, but they all do have different personalities, and they're putting their best foot forward with you and when you tour with the senior. Have you figured out who is Nurse Ratched underneath that facade? And have you discerned the ability, or do you have the innate ability to tell when somebody's BSing you and it's really a prison in disguise?
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, there's definitely some people in this business that really do care, and I'm not going to say that not everyone doesn't care, but there are many that do, and there are some that, as you can say, there are concerns. So as I mentioned a little bit ago, spending that time and getting to know the senior is usually a good sign that that person does care. It's more than, oh, let me show you the, you know, this room and that room, and not getting to know the family and the senior probably is going to deter someone from moving in. So I would say more of that kindness, the getting to know the person. If that's not happening, um, that is really going to deter someone from moving in.
Mhm. Um, and also, every person is different. So they may, and I would imagine that I'm calling them facilities. Is that a no-no term?
Yeah, nowadays it should be called communities because,
Okay.
you know, just to, you know, unfortunately throughout the years, the word facility gave assisted livings, skilled memory care is a bad rap because, you know, I hate to say it, many people think that I'm going to go into a nursing home and I'm going to sit in a wheelchair or be in my bed all day and do nothing. There is so much that has changed over the years. You know, and as I mentioned, being in the food service world most of my life in senior communities, I've seen that. And that the changes if you're going to sell something and you want your community to be the best and get good recognition, you want to make sure it is a thriving activity great food type atmosphere to attract those residents to move in because more and more people are offering different things. One thing I haven't mentioned, many go out now for meals. They take their bus or they rent a bus and they go out to the local restaurant, take them to Publix, take them to Walmarts of the world, so that they could get out and just not sit and face something outside versus being stuck into the community. And more and more communities are doing that more often than not. So it is, I think a big reason why the word facility has gone away and it's gone to the word community.
Well, and also many communities, thank you for the correction.
Sure.
Uh, I asked for it, but thank you. Uh, Many of them encompass all three or two of the three of the levels. So they've got, they are communities and they're graduated communities. So, and also I'm thinking that seniors have changed. The nature of the senior experience has changed dramatically since baby boomers came into it. And it makes sense because we're probably the most active older generation, maybe in history. Um, and so, it makes sense that the offerings would change and the sense of community would change. And I was also going to mention that seniors themselves we're all different, and some people would want a quiet place. They just want to read, they want to have a little bit of social interaction, and each community probably has its own personality, and that personality may be too gregarious for an introvert. Um, how do you, does your questionnaire sort of cover that so that you can sense what the best fit is for
Well,
that?
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, sometime, just talking about, I didn't mention this already. I'm glad you brought this up. I mean, many have libraries, like internal library in there. So if somebody truly just wanted to go read a book, there are, if reading was a factor in your decision, as an example, there are many that, if not all, have library, but there are some that have thousands of books available, and most of those books are coming from seniors living there over the years, and so basically giving them to the community for others to share. And there's one specific community that I know of actually has a card index because they have so many books, and you could go to the card index and find a specific book if needed. But yeah, I mean, there are definitely some people that would prefer to stay in their room, read a book, or maybe you know doesn't want so much interaction during the meal periods, and that's okay. So knowing that, and if someone's looking for that specifically, we definitely can guide them in that direction in those communities that may be a better fit.
What about pets? What do you see? Is that a growing acceptance? Talk about pets because that's important for a lot of people.
Absolutely. Yep. Pets are another big thing that's being added to many communities, and there are more friendly pet communities than others. Some are being so pet friendly they don't even charge for the pet fee. Many do. Um, and that's usually a minimal charge, but some are not charging because they want the pets in there because pets actually help the senior and just not the one that owns the pet, the others in the community because it gets them going and interactive, and it's really exciting part of their day when they see a dog or a cat specifically in the hallways. And many, what I'm noticing, even many of the management staff, I know some sales directors at some communities and some executive directors at communities bring their own pet in as interaction so that the seniors can see them and bring them to different activities or just even roam the halls a little bit, just so that they may go in a room and maybe someone's day is not going so well. The pet will go into the room and try to help that senior out. So Yeah, more and more definitely adding pets are accepted. And I would say that is definitely a continued trend that I wouldn't be surprised if they added maybe a pet walking service at most communities. Most charge now, but I could see that as a freebie in the near future because more and more seniors are bringing their own pets in.
What about different types of pets? Um, my partner Isabella loves birds, and she sees their personality much as other people see dogs and cats' personality.
Yeah, I mean, I would say there are definitely some limitations in most communities, but I would say dogs, cats, birds. Now, most communities, if you can take care of the pet, then that won't be an issue. If you can't take care of the pet, most communities will require you to make sure you hire someone that you bring in, and that's where a pet sitter or something like that would come in and take care of that for you. Um, there's all different aspects that I've seen. Some um, have more diverse acceptance of pets than others. So it really depends on the community. But that's something that, if I did, for some reason, I didn't have that in my notes and someone had a pet iguana, I would find that out for you. I mean, I would make that call and make sure that that pet would be accepted because that could be a deal breaker for the senior or the family. I'm dealing with someone that recently that had four dogs, and so that's a challenge. I don't know. I haven't found one that would accept all four dogs, but maybe a couple. So calling around, that's part of our free service, and see what they accept and not accept as part of my service.
You probably wouldn't want an iguana wandering the hallway, even if on a leash.
I,
Can
I
you?
can tell you, I've seen that. I don't know about seniors having iguanas, but I've seen more and more pet iguanas out there. I was actually at the SPCA here locally, and there was a lot of iguanas being up for adoption. So they're out there.
Yeah. Can you imagine walking out your door and seeing an iguana, any reptile
Yeah.
walking down the hall?
Oh yeah.
And here in Florida, we've got enough alligators, so I think the built-in fear factor is great. Um, I would imagine that there's also a size limitation with, especially with dogs, because I would think that smaller dogs are easier to manage.
That's true. I would say probably I'm gonna say 20 to 25 pounds or under is the normal acceptance with the pet. It'd be very difficult if it was over 25 pounds for sure.
And my dog, who's 80 pounds, um, he would love it. And he hugs everybody, leaning into them. He would love it, but I think he'd be a bit much for any home.
It's interesting you say that. That's the other thing that I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot of volunteers say, "Hey, can I come in with my pet?" Now you have to go through some qualification purposes, but I've seen some dogs come in specifically to communities and go around and to the residents. So it's definitely a way of nurturing and helping seniors get through the day.
Yeah. And we know the impact of certain animals on people, horses in particular, not that you're likely to have a horse at a community. Um, what are some of the other stories that you can share? Because this is about humans, and their stories.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. So, I would say memory care is probably the most difficult. It's difficult for families. It's difficult for the senior. They're going through a lot when they have been diagnosed with some form of dementia. And, you know, I would say that when choosing a memory care specifically, you want to make sure that that nurturing is there. for the most part, all memory cares are very good in that aspect. But we mentioned that connection when you walk in, especially into memory care, is probably something that can be difficult. I would say more families ask more questions when their senior has dementia because they really want to make sure it's a good fit because there are going to be concerns of more falling, wandering. Is there a locked unit? And most are, but those types of questions are brought up more when the senior does have dementia. So and there are, different aspects of that. There are some communities out there that are just pure um, memory cares. They're not associated with an assisted living or independent living. And then, as you said earlier, there are some that have all aspects of it. So assisted living, independent living, assisted living, and memory care. So, um, that it is challenging, and many families try to delay going into a memory care, trying to take care of the senior at home before that decision is made, because they're going through a lot. The senior's going through a lot, and they want to make sure if the time does come, that they're going to try to delay as much as possible, because it's a difficult thing to go through. It truly is.
Hmm. I have a neighbor whose husband was really going downhill fast. She couldn't work with, take care of him on her own. She did hire somebody to come in several days a week, but he went beyond that. And it's just that decision. It's like, I think most people, most families feel like when they make that decision, they're giving up and have a lot of guilt around that.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And unfortunately, I've seen this before too. It's happened on one occasion where if you wait too long, that wandering aspect of dementia does happen. Unfortunately, I've seen where someone has gotten out the door and wandered the streets. They found that particular person about an hour later, but that does happen, and it is a tough decision because it's basically at certain points it's a 24-hour 24/7 coverage that you're going to be with that senior in order for them to stay at home, and there is the home care aspect, um, but that could become very costly as well. So if you have that 24/7 coverage with home care, you're better off going into memory care because it's going to be much more expensive, with home care expenses by doing that route.
Yeah. My grandmother, we moved her into a condo complex across the street where we lived. And we knew it was time when she got in the car with a neighbor as they were leaving for work and asked if they would take her to the mall. And they did. And when they dropped her off at the door, she goes, "Are you going to be here to pick me up?" And that's when they knew they had made a mistake. But sometimes they're so lucid, apparently lucid, that you don't know when you've got a runner on you.
Well, and it's interesting you say that. I think a lot of family members or friends, neighbors deny, sometimes when it comes to dementia. They don't want to believe it, and I think that's probably the first step. I'm not, a dementia expert by any means, but I think that's the first step in understanding and accepting it that, oh, we need some help, whether it's home care or just getting assessed, to say if they truly have dementia, would be the first step. But understanding that so that you know what's coming and understanding what's coming, because many people don't understand the different levels and there's the different forms of dementia. It's just not Alzheimer's. There's others, lots of others out there that people would need to understand.
Do you see that communities that have several levels of care, including memory care, do memory care better than those that are just devoted only to memory care? You may not be able to discern that. Or are those that specialize and that's all we do they do it better in terms of appropriate nurturing for people? Do you see any difference?
I really think it depends on the community. I've seen it both ways where they offer all three, four levels of care, just do as good as the independents. But I would say for the most part, those that are exclusively memory care, um, usually you do see better care for the most part because that's all they do. I mean, that's their expertise. I'm going to say on occasion, sometimes when you have all the different levels and you're short staffed, I'm not saying they'll pull from memory care, but they have to pull from other areas to get it staffed appropriately. When you're memory care, you're memory care. So you know that's the staff and that's, they're going to be working memory care and they, even vice versa in a community that offers all three, they may pull someone from assisted that has some dementia expertise, but not to the extent where it's just pure memory care. So having pure memory care, that's all the residents are. So that staff does adapt. I also see many times where, many communities have long-term care employees. Many I've seen 30, 40 years in some communities where, this is just what I've observed, and I'm not sure if it's true. I haven't done a study on it, but I've seen that a lot of memory care have probably the most longevity staff members than of the other areas. Um, which is interesting because it can be the most difficult on them because those type of residents, depending on the severity of that dementia, they could be wanderers or they could have those things where they're not sitting. Most of them want to go, go, go. So it causes more stress on that caregiver. But that, to me, that nurturing aspect seems to be in those memory care units, maybe more than the others. I'm not saying they're not an independent or assisted, but it does take a special person in the memory care unit.
Yeah. Like an ER nurse
Yeah.
or
Yep.
ER person, you got to have that
Right.
mindset because they also deal with angry,
Oh, yeah.
out of control people. So,
Oh, absolutely. Yep. That's the other thing too, talking about memory care. Now, I don't think all of them have it, but I've seen a kind of a calming room in most, and I think eventually all will have it, where if a person in the memory care unit is getting angry, they take that senior into a room and have a discussion, try to calm them down. They may have some type of calming light or other aspects in that room to try to calm them down so that they can go back out after. So I'm seeing that more and more in many memory cares.
and back to the family's worries, this this almost certainly memory care has the most potential for abuse, um, uh, which is good that they tend to be more nurturing, and I can understand that. But there's because the senior has very little cognitive abilities in some cases, then they're much more likely to be physically abused or emotionally abused and that sort of thing. And it would be very difficult to tell if they are.
Well, and that's the other thing too. There's ratings that they all go through what we call ACA inspections. So if there are things that do come up during the inspection, that's public knowledge. So we have that knowledge as well if there are concerns on that. Or even, yeah, as everyone knows, Google reviews. Not saying all Google reviews are the best, but that sometimes will make a decision on a community when they're deciding on where they want to move their senior or the senior themselves. So
Right. So we've talked about a lot. What have we left out that you'd like to share about your experience, about your services, anything on the topic?
right, yeah. So I think as we mentioned, it is a free service. I'm here to help everyone and anyone, whether you're on Medicaid, um, you know. and people ask, well, how do you get paid? I think that's important for everyone to understand that. I get paid if you move into the community. The community pays me. I have agreements with approximately 80% of those communities here in Southern Pinellas. With that being said, a lot of people question, well, you're going to push me into a community that you have an agreement with, or you're going to push me into a community that it's going to pay you the most. That is not even close. As a company owner, I'm going to find the best community for you, financial aspect, the items that you may bingo, activities, likes, dislikes, pets, anything that we know is going to be needed or is going to be a deal breaker. It's like a real estate agent. And how I look at it is we want to make sure that they're offering everything possible. So I will tour those communities I don't have agreements with. As I said, I'll tour those that may be on Medicaid. I don't get paid if you need help with a rehab. I don't get paid if you move into rehab. I will help you with that. Um, as I mentioned too, I will help. I want to be there when you move in on moving day. I want to make sure it's a good fit, that we got everything in place. So that night, it's hopefully relaxing. Because usually that first week is the most difficult. It's a new home. There's many residents, that you're going to be dealing with on a daily basis, and there is stress, but we want to make sure it's a great fit, and we're going to do everything possible to help that senior out. I think a lot of where I come from does come from my mother. My mother still works. I'm originally from Massachusetts. She still works up there in a senior center. She does food pantries every week. She does volunteer every week. That caring aspect is why I'm doing this. I know everyone needs money, but that's not the main reason I'm doing it. I want to make sure that seniors are taken care of. And baby boomers are going to grow in the next 15, 20 years. It's not decreasing, it's going to grow. Um, and don't quote me on this, but I think it's 80 million people will be over 65, if I remember correctly, in the next 15, 20 years. And I could be wrong on that number, but it's something that is not going to go away for many years. We want to take care of our seniors. I'm really excited about this company and where I can go with it.
How old is your mom?
My mom is, let's see, she's gonna her birthday's on December 19th, so she will be 78 this year.
Okay,
So,
good.
78.
How can people reach you if they'd like to have a conversation with you?
Um, Either email, phone, text, whatever it is. My number is 727-599-8842. Or they can be reached by email, jkilleen, Killeen, at youroasisadvisor.com. You can call me, text me, and I'm just let you know I'm available 24/7. I don't work 9 to 5. If you need to reach me on the weekend, sometimes we have an emergency placement, rehab. They have to move out. Medicare is up, and they need to find a placement. I can help you. I did that this weekend where I reached out to someone to see if they could help because they had posted something on Facebook. So I'm there 24/7 to help you.
Do you have a website or a microsite from Oasis? And is the URL so complicated we just need to have you send it to Libby and put it on the in the notes?
It's not too bad. It's actually Oasis Senior Advisor.com/Pinellas hyphen county. So that's Oasis Senior Advisors.com hyphen Pinellas/county. So
And is that advisors singular or plural?
that's plural for the site.
Okay. All right. Well, very informative, and your sense of caring definitely comes through. So I really have enjoyed this uh, podcast, and getting to know you a little better and about the services.
I appreciate it. I really thoroughly enjoyed this, and I appreciate your time as well.
All right, let me wrap up. Thanks, John, for joining us on the Outmarket.pro podcast. To learn more about Oasis Senior Advisors, please see his contact information down in the show notes below, and he just shared them with you audibly. You can also learn more about Outmarket.pro in the show notes. We're a comprehensive marketing firm. Visit us online at www.outmarket.pro. Be sure to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell if you like this episode and would like to see more. And we'll see you next time on the Outmarket.pro podcast.
You